down because I've never done this before and I'm kind of nervous. So. Okay. I'm an addict named Mary.
Hey, Mary.
I first came into this program a couple years ago, and I was probably at the total end of my rope, not wanting to live anymore. I'd done it all, just like the book says. I'd been to doctors, I'd been to churches, you know, the whole line, and I could just never find out what my problem was. You know, my life was just so miserable, and I couldn't live like that anymore. So I finally went to my family doctor because he was the one that was prescribing me antidepressants. And I was just like, man, I just cannot do this anymore. Please help me, you know. I mean, I was just like, please, somebody help me. And he said, listen, I can't help you anymore. He says, but I got this friend. So he turned me over to a psychiatrist from Oakland. And they pretty much basically just said, listen, you're an addict. And I won't treat you anymore unless you go into a recovery program. So I said okay, because I was willing at that point to do anything, because I couldn't stand where I was at. It wasn't healthy for me, it wasn't healthy for my family, my children, nobody. So I did that, and I went through a very long program. It probably took me a little bit longer than others. But I made it through it. And I got out, and I did real well for a while. And then I started not following suggestions by, you know, hanging around the places I shouldn't hang around, you know, not doing the step work, not getting a sponsor, not calling people. You know, I was doing all the not do's. And I relapsed, and I was back out there practicing again for a while. And quicker than quick, I was worse off than I was when I went there in the first place. And I thought, okay, this isn't working. I'm going to give this thing another shot. Because I knew Narcotics Anonymous would welcome me back, and they wouldn't judge me. So I went back, and with open arms, everybody welcomed me back. And I got a sponsor. And, you know, all that stuff's hard, you know, to get going on and, you know, start working into, you know, working the steps and all that. But I started working the first step. I'd admit it, I was an addict. You know, I knew the problem. And I thought, oh good, now that I'm clean, everything's going to change. Well, the unfortunate thing is everything was all in front of me at that point now. You know, everything that I'd been doing was like right there. And it was like, oh man, I am so messed up. And I was kind of slowly, you know, trying to work that second step, and months had gone by and hadn't really been doing what I should be doing. You know, I'd get real diligent with it, and I'd work for a couple weeks on it real hard. And then I'd kind of slack back a little bit, and I'd sit there dormant, and stuff would start getting ugly again, and I'd start feeling that pain and that misery. And so I decided to move on again. So I continued to work the second step. And I got dormant again, and I kind of sat there again after getting through that second step, and same thing happened again. I started to work that third step then, and, you know, I got the hope from the second step, and so I moved on to that third, and, you know, things started to feel better, you know, and I knew I was really where I was supposed to be. And then I also realized that this recovery thing was my responsibility, because if I don't do those things, I start getting back right where I was. You know, because when I came into all this, you know, I was blaming, you know, everybody. It was everybody else's fault. It wasn't my fault. You know, why were these people causing me all these problems? And I found that that wasn't the case. It was me. It was my reactions, my actions. I feel really good about myself today. I call people from the program. I call my sponsor. I do a little bit of service work. I work the steps. I do readings. I go to meetings. And it fills my life with what I need. And it's certainly made me a better person. And I know that if I don't continue to do the things that I need to do, I'll be right back where I was. So for me, it's really important to keep doing what I need to do. I think people see changes in me, and that's encouraging. Sometimes I don't always think I'm growing. But they tell me I am, so I guess I'll believe them for what they've got. I can't fill 20 minutes, so. And like I said, this is my first time, so I'm feeling really nervous. And I do know, though, that if you don't work the steps and do what they suggest, it doesn't happen for you. I can honestly say that because I know my life is changing, and it's changing for the better. So thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Mary.
Our second speaker, named John W.
Sitting there trying to remember if the getting nervous and feeling my heartbeat in my chest was a good thing. The amazing power of this place every year to bring me right back to where I was the year before and allow me to reassess where I've been over the course of the past year, you know. And it never fails that I always get sucked into a meeting or sucked into a topic that that's just dead on, you know. When I first got clean, I started going to a meeting in Goshen, and it was at a treatment facility. And there was a sign up on the wall that said, "I'm 100% responsible for my actions 100% of the time." And from the time I got clean, I started assessing that, and on some days was painfully aware when I had made the wrong choices, you know. And so in last night I go into registration. I'm registering, and there's a mark on the bottom of the registration form. Would you like to speak at a workshop? And I'm thinking this is for next year, right? Because it has your address, so they can mail you the stuff out. And I said, "Is this for this year or next year?" And the guy said, "Well, it's for this year." And I'm like, "Well," and he said, "But all the workshops are full." And I'm like, "Cool." So I checked no. Mark comes up to me a few minutes later and says, "Hey, I've got one open. My recovery is my responsibility." And so I started searching last night. Before I went to bed, I did just a little bit of reading, and I read quite a bit this morning, and just trying to catch up on. For me, often, you know, when I first started to speak, it was real easy for me to just give a lead and just constantly give a lead. But anymore, it's become more about where have I been for the last year. So I want to talk a little bit about my level of responsibility over the course of the last year. In our basic text, it says, through our inability to accept personal responsibilities, we were actually creating our own problems. And when I was out there using, you know, I can look back and I can think real clearly about all the times that my actions had negative consequences and how often I was willing to totally accept those negative consequences, you know, right up until the very end when it got real nerve-wracking to drive around with anything on me because, you know, knowing what the consequences were, having you people tell me, you know, jails, institutions, and death, and having had experienced most of that and being in a spot where scared to death that I was going to have to experience it again. So where does that count over the past year? Through my inability to accept personal responsibility, I realize I've actually been creating my own problems, and that I still do that, man. That even though I've been clean a while now, and that I've worked the steps with my sponsor, and I continue to be involved actively in my recovery, the last year's been a tough one. a lot of my friends and loved ones that have been around me have seen me bottom out again over the last year. And, hitting bottom when I was out there using was I guess seemed okay at the time, It seemed pretty rational to sit and think about putting a loaded gun in my mouth when I was out there using, but to have a little bit of clean time and think about it is pretty scary. And it's a direct consequence of my inability to accept personal responsibility for my actions. Being so stuck, I tend to get so stuck up in the what I want right now, And that's what kills addicts. Those same tools that I learned to use when I was out there, that helped to keep me alive when I was out there using, are the ones that are going to kill me in here. The conning, the manipulating, the hiding, the masks. And that if I don't get through that, we all know what happens to us when we don't get through that. And so I hit bottom over the past year in recovery. Didn't use, but I hit bottom. Emotionally, spiritually. And for the grace of God, I was able to get back on the horse and start riding. Guys coming up to me and saying, "John, you're not right, man. You're not right now. What's up? What's going on?" Having my sponsor point out to me that many people get to a point in their recovery where it's either time to change or it's time, then your choices are either go back out and use, stay clean but die, or continue to go to meetings and share this beautiful message of nothingness. And I was in a spot where, there was no emotion in what I shared. It was all this mental BS that I had programmed over the past 7-8 years of recovery, and it had nothing to do with who I was or where I was or how I was feeling. I wish he was here. There's a guy from our area named Michael, and he over the past year has opened himself up after 12, 13 years of being real closed off. And watching him do that, my higher power knows exactly what I need. See, I can look at you and I can tell you exactly what you need to do for your recovery. It's second nature. We're all able to do it. You could, if I've got a problem and I come to you with it, you can tell me exactly what I need to hear for me to get the process started and moving forward. Well, my higher power saw that I needed some type of jolt, and he put this man in my life who was calling me, and he came out of this shell, and I don't think he fully realizes how much of a shell he's come out of, but it helped to act as a catalyst for me to come out of mine. And so I got to that point, and I'm like, what do I do next? I'm reading our literature, and oh, God bless you. That's perfect. Thank you. No, that's all right. I've been guilty of this before, so that ain't gonna get it. Man, that's like, I know. So I start reading our literature, and I start talking to men in the fellowship about what next. And the realization that I had hit a point in my recovery where me being fully responsible for the next step, there was really nothing. Thank you, brother. There was really nothing that my sponsor could directly do. There was really nothing that my wife could do. There was really nothing that any of the men, that the literature. I had reached a point where it was time for me to take responsibility, and it involved something that is an outside issue. It involved therapy. So I won't talk a lot about that, other than the realization that I'm an addict because I'm an addict, not because of the way I was raised, not because of being molested at age 12, not because of the circumstances that involved my growing up. But I've got a lot of underlying issues that directly affect my ability to recover. When our previous speaker was up here, she talked about, them telling her that we can't continue to treat you for this until you take responsibility for treating the disease of addiction. And I was to a point in my recovery where I had treated in large part the disease of addiction, but had left all this other stuff behind. And this little child, this little version of me inside just screaming out for help, And the ability to take responsibility for that, and the metamorphosis that's happened over the past 3 months, man. They're getting real again, they're getting alive again. The feeling my heartbeat. Well, I know I'm going to speak. I was looking through our basic text, and a couple things that I remembered, and I'm not one of those that can quote the basic text, but I found a couple things that kind of kicked my ass. We expect responsibility for our problems and see that we're equally responsible for our solutions. And see, it's one thing to be in a space where there's constantly not enough money, but it's another thing for me to sit back and not try and curb my spending, not try and come up with ways to make more money, not try to let my recovery touch every area of my life, financial included. And why it is, man, I have to experience so much pain before I'm willing to change. I was talking to my sponsor, and he said, I wonder if we'll ever get to a point in our lives where we can institute a process of change without first experiencing so much pain. And as addicts, we tend to experience a whole lot of pain before we're willing to make that next jump. I am. I'll speak for me. We are not responsible for our disease, only for our recovery. And then it goes on to say, as we become to apply what we have learned, our lives begin to change for the better. Man, it's real simple. The same stuff that kept me clean when I first came around, going to meetings, calling my sponsor on a daily basis, or talking to another addict on a daily basis. It also says in the sponsorship IP that we're responsible for contacting our sponsor. It's not the other way around, But if I want what he has to offer, then I should be willing to go to any length to get it. And I'm not. I haven't been. That's an ongoing theme in my sponsorship family, A bunch of men with a lot of recovery that all have something to offer, that all want to move forward, and we've all reached this point where here we are, And so we've instituted a change. We're getting together once every other week and working the steps together as a sponsorship family. And it's really cool. As we become to apply what we have learned, our lives begin to change for the better. It's that simple. The things I learned at the meetings, in the literature, from my sponsor, from the other men in the fellowship, from the women in the fellowship. I give a lot of credit to the men in the fellowship, and that's because that's who I've stuck with. I have not crossed that line. I just don't cross it. It's not a place for me to be. But I do get a lot from the women that are involved in my recovery. And if I apply that stuff, and applying that stuff is, it's hard to tell. It's real easy to tell when I'm not doing it, but it's real hard for me to tell when I am doing it, It's like the unmanageability that creeps up in my life when I'm not actually applying the principles. The unmanageability is overwhelming. I mean, you can feel it. You can how it is I manage to mask that and avoid that so often, how I manage to hide behind the fact that I'm miserable and that I'm dysfunctional as hell. And I'm blessed to have the men around me that call me on my shit, you know. I have no idea how long I've talked, so the last year has been rough, but once again, one thing shines through, you know, we don't have to use, no matter what life gives us, we don't have to use, period. It's that simple, and the simpler I keep it, that simple understanding, because I complicate the hell out of it. I used to hear people when I first came around, I heard people up speaking and talking about how they complicated things, and I thought to myself, you know, okay, whatever. And now that I've been clean a while, to looking back and realizing how messed up I screw with the simplest piece of literature. In our how it works, it says the only way, help me out, the only way not to return to active addiction is not to take that first drug. How many of us have screwed that real simple little lineup, you know? I'm real grateful to have the chance to be able to share. And I think that's all I have. Thanks.
Okay, we open it up for sharing now. I'd like to remind everyone that you are being taped. If you wish to not be taped, please let us know so we can turn the tape machine off. Anybody wants to share? Come on up.
Hi family, I'm an addict. My name is Lisa. And John, the first time I met you when I was first here and I was sharing on a different level, we connected on some things and we talked and we hugged. And I just want to thank you for touching the emotion in me. And what I was thinking about when you were sharing is that line, or we were talking about it last night in the room, is that when the pain of remaining the same becomes greater than the fear of change, we will surely let go. And I hit a bottom in recovery this year. Well, it started last year. I got confronted with the same situation that I had a whole bunch of service-oriented recovery, not recovery-oriented service, you know. So I've been here a little while as well, you know, 9.5 years, and at 9 years clean, I'm thinking, what in the hell is going on with my life? And as it progresses, it's like now, you know, and I was reading in a journal. We have a writing meeting in our area, and you know, so you write a topic. They give you a topic, and then you write for 15 minutes, and then you can share it or not share it. And you know, and I was reading it in the book over there when you first started. Well, when the meeting first started, and it was talking about me losing 100 pounds, and if I lost 100 pounds, that would make me feel good. And most of you who have been here, who know me, who have seen me year after year after year, I lost 110 pounds since last April. And that's a beautiful thing, but it only changed the condition of my skin. It did not change the condition of my spirit. And if my recovery is my responsibility, what I got faced with is that I had to change the condition of my spirit. Me and God. I got 12 steps, 12 traditions, 12 concepts, all of that. You know, I've been involved in service from, you know, picking up chairs and ashtrays and books, you know, to being the chair of my area convention, you know, want to be involved in regional service, area level. I've done all of that, you know, but I still didn't have anything that was filling this hole, you know. And so I had a breakdown. And on March 24th, I was in a mental institution, you know, and I would come to meetings and I would hear people say, you know, so-and-so happened and I didn't take nothing, you know. And when they would say I didn't take nothing, you know, I would feel like a freak, you know, because I need to take something. Because for what I got, all the step work, all this prayer, you know, all this other stuff that I tried to do externally couldn't fix what was going on inside of me internally. And I had to go and deal with this stuff. And yes, I mean, to the best of my ability, when I work the steps, I'm working them as thoroughly as I can at that moment with whatever God gives me in that moment. I have taken a searching and fearless moral inventory time and time again, but there was something I wasn't getting. I needed, it was funny because I went to this area, this mental health area, community mental health, and I have some sponsees that are in the field and what have you. And so one of my sponsees called me the other day, and I'm looking for a different counselor, and she says, I got a referral. She calls me on the phone. She's kind of laughing. She says, I got a referral, and I want you to know who this person is. Do you know who it might be? And I'm like, no. And it's my sponsee that has a referral to counsel me. I said, I said, listen, let me tell you, what I got, you need PhDs and some other numbers behind your name. You can't counsel me, joker. It was just really a funny thing. I had to go, because we have a lot of psychiatrists with GEDs around here. You know what I mean? They try to give us advice, what you should do, this worked for me, and that kind of stuff. And sometimes there, like it says in More Will Be Revealed, we need to seek outside help, And when I heard you talking, it touched, what comes from the heart touches the heart, and I could feel you. And I crochet and read and all kinds of stuff when I listen, because I listen to so many messages, and it's not, anything personal. It's like just what I have to do to cope. But you start talking, and I started to feel you, and I started to think, I had to let my sponsees know, I had all this stuff and all this good stuff I've been sharing with you and what have you, I still need help. And there's some things that I need help that I got to go outside. That's not saying that Narcotics Anonymous didn't give me all this. Narcotics Anonymous gave me the ability, okay? Because if I didn't have this program that deals with the disease of addiction, which is all inclusive, if I didn't have this specific, if you told me I had to just deal with this substance, if you called it an ism or whatever, I might have a problem. But it said that the disease of addiction was all inclusive. I mean, everything. Even the things that have happened to me through my life that I have stuffed and suppressed. We were talking at breakfast about how shame is internal and guilt is external, right? So like this shame is like, I am a bad person. And all the steps and all the service and all the love and all the hugs and all the work that I've done still can't make me feel okay. So if my recovery is my responsibility, I'm talking about recovering whole person, total, mind, body, and spirit, right? Because we say this disease is, mental, physical, spiritual, those aspects, 3 aspects. So I have to heal all of that. And my emotional spirit is now what I'm taking care of, so that I can get okay with me. I learned the ability to look another human being in the eye through coming in here, right? But now, not just surface stuff, because like you said, it was a whole bunch of, I got enough mental jargon about the program. I read, study literature, I can comprehend well and that kind of stuff, but ask me how I'm feeling. So now when somebody says, how you doing? I don't say, fine, effed up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional, you know what I'm saying? Or I don't say, life is good and okay when I'm dying on the inside. I say I'm here, because sometimes that's all I can do. Some days, it's been, like I said, it was only March 24th, and now, on this different medication, and some days I feel like I just don't want to take nothing, but I have to remember that not taking nothing, wind me up in a place where, they had double grates on the window. You know what I mean? It really was. I was jumping on the window like this, let me out of here. Shame, shame about who I am. But my recovery is my responsibility, and Narcotics Anonymous taught me to be responsible for my whole person, no matter what I'm going through. And like the meeting before, carrying the message, saying, you know what, because there's a lot of people that's going through it that don't talk about it, and that we have to talk about that stuff and stay within the realms of our traditions. You know, I'm not going to give you the place or reference you to which doctor or medications or whatever, because that's not my job. You know, but I can say that, you know what, I was feeling like this. I was feeling crazy. You know, I wanted to kill everybody, you know, in my house. I wanted to murder the whole household. I performed the act, and I'm going to say this and I'm going to be quiet. I performed an act on my daughter. I was talking to an addict on the phone, and I was telling her that my daughter, she's 13, and she's in hormonal hell. And I was telling her that, you know, she was out of control. I didn't know, and my daughter's bigger than me now. I lost weight, and now my daughter's bigger than me. Gosh darn it, you know. So I can't just, you know, and I'm not going to fight her like a woman in the street. You know, that's beyond me. So this addict gave me this suggestion, and you know, I don't tell the world, and this is how I end up in the hospital. She told me that I could put a bar of soap in a sock, and it wouldn't leave any bruises. You know, and me at wit's end and not in my right mind, not taking nothing. You know, that sounds like a good ass idea. Me, the person whose mother abused her, put her hand in the oven, who broke her ribs, you know, who been beat severely with all kinds of artifacts. Sounds like a good idea. Doesn't sound like abuse. Not gonna hurt that bad. And my daughter had a boy in the house, and she slipped. It was her and another girl in the house, and you know the other girl was older. But when I came in the house, she snuck the boy out the back door, and I lost my mind. So I told her to go, and I took a moment, you know, which would, in most cases, be a moment of clarity. Didn't make me clear. I was so gone in my rage, and it's all about me and my total self-centeredness that I took a sock and a bar of soap and I hit my child, you know, and I hit her so hard that the doggone sock broke, you know. So that means I was implying for the same abuser, the same person that said I didn't want to be like my mother. I'm talking about not dealing with those issues, not taking full responsibility for my total person, my mind, body, and spirit, and then taking that same behavior and anger and fear and shame and all that stuff that I had growing inside of me, and I took that to my baby, you know. And when I told them, they put me in the hospital because I was a threat to myself and others, you know. So now I'm taking care of myself, and it's not that she's still not 13, because she is. She is still in hormonal hell. But I'm not taking no sock to my baby anymore, you know, and so I'm recovering from that, because I hadn't put my hands on anybody in anger for a long time, you know, and it was part of my past, and it was like all that adrenaline rush came, right, just second nature, you know. So I just had to take care of me, you know. So thanks for letting me share, and thank you for sharing.
Thanks, Lisa. Anybody else want to share?
Hey everyone, my name's Jonathan. I'm an addict. Well, I'm from that sponsor family that doesn't always call their sponsors. So I had to laugh at that one. Yeah, the topic title is Recovery is My Responsibility, and I came into this workshop with putting a word in the beginning of that. My recovery is my responsibility. And I need to remember that. My sponsor is not going to keep me clean. No one else is going to keep me clean. And no one else is going to make me use. My first sponsor said, when I was talking to him early on in recovery, he says, you didn't use today, nobody can make you use. And that's absolutely true. It is a personal choice. It is a choice whether I use or not. It's a choice whether I recover or not. And that's one of the first lessons that I learned in recovery. I got on a little bit further and started trying to turn this inward self-centeredness into a little bit more of interest in my fellow men who are out here and women, the addicts in recovery, and I started wanting to be able to carry the message, and I started wanting to have other people recover too. And like a true addict, I wanted to do it for them. You know, I want you to recover. I want you to get it. Don't you understand? I want you to recover. I'll do whatever it takes for you to recover. And I had to eventually learn the great freedom of this fellowship, which is that I'm only responsible for my own recovery. That I'm not responsible for your recovery. You know, I can only carry the message. I cannot carry the addict. And I began to learn that, and thank God I did, because I was getting that lesson. My higher power was teaching me that lesson right as I became a sponsor. And that was needed very early in my sponsorship history, because I had to know from the very beginning that I'm a guide as a sponsor, and I need to hear a lot about sponsorship. So anybody want to talk to me about it, it's fine with me, because I'm lost. This is an awesome job, and it's frightening. But I learned early on that, you know, if my sponsees stay clean, if the men that I'm working with stay clean, that it's not because of me. It's my higher power working with that addict. Because I'm not taking the glory that belongs to my higher power for that addict staying in recovery, then I'm not saddled with the burden if they relapse, or if they decide not to be in recovery. And that is a great freedom. I'll do what I can as far as the sponsor is concerned. I'll do what I can as far as fellow addicts are concerned. But I'm not responsible for anyone else's recovery. I'm responsible for my own. And believe me, that's enough. Because I'm faced with choices every single day, every single minute of every single day on what to do with recovery. You know, I don't have as many years as a lot of people in here, but it was only yesterday that I saw something, 2 days ago, that I saw something. I saw a headset. I was at the Y, and it was sitting there, and then it didn't look like it belonged to anybody else. Seriously. No, it didn't look like it. Didn't look like it. And, you know, it just doesn't take, I mean, I had to struggle with, you know, honesty. It really, I didn't pay for it. It really wasn't mine. You know what I mean? It really wasn't. And I'm starting to ramble. So I just wanted to say that one of the great joys of this program is freedom. You know, and that is the point. That's the highest point of the pyramid. And in my recovery, if I work the program correctly, and it's not my program, it's the program. If I work it correctly, that's what I achieve is freedom. And this is an instance when I can relate to that. And I'm very grateful to be here this weekend. I really truly am. Last year, it was the first time I was here, and on the last day, I got to tell this story. On the last day, they had reflections, and we were talking about what the whole thing was like, and it was about a half hour, 45 minutes long. I cried from the minute I got there to the minute I left. It was like I didn't want to leave here. This is such a safe, wonderful place that just has made me more God-centered, and I just wish I could be here all the time. And I want to thank everyone for being here and helping me and travel along this path. Thank you.
Thank you. Good job, I'm Brad. I'm an addict. Very grateful to be here today. I identify with a couple of things. The topic and of this workshop, Recovery is My Responsibility, and especially want to thank the speaker from last night. She said so many things that I identified with, especially about doing things on the outside. And when I first came around recovery, I've been through lots of treatment centers and counselors, and so I knew what people wanted me to say. You know, I knew the language, I knew what kind of attitude I should appear to have. But I had this secret world where I hated you. I knew you were up to something, trying to get something from me, but I was going to play it off. You know, I was still playing the game. I just wasn't using no dope. You know, and I honestly really didn't know that I wasn't in recovery. That's all I knew. That's all I knew was playing a game, and I was just playing a new game now. You know, I just didn't know. And I just figured sooner or later I'd play the right game the right way and somehow I'd win, you know. But I just so appreciated. It was never put to me so simply as I heard it last night, you know. And that was me. You know, one of the last times I was in recovery, I built up things quickly. Financially, I did well, and I had some stuff. And I donated some computers to the church, so I figured I had the spiritual thing sewed up. You know, I did. I really believed that. So I didn't have to attend church because I'd already done something good. I didn't have to attend meetings because I was too busy trying to make some money so I could do some more good things. You know, it was just another perpetual mask or something. But again, it was all about the outside. So my recovery was all on the outside. And when I sit here today and think about the problems that I had in my life, the problems weren't the dope house, the dope man and all the people in and out of the dope house and the police and the courts and the jails. Those aren't they're not my problem today. But in my mind, that used to be them. I wouldn't have got this ticket if that cop hadn't, you know, if he'd been doing his job catching a more serious criminal. You know, everything that ever happened to me was a result of something outside of me. Somebody didn't do their job right, somebody. But it wasn't me. And it was only really since I've been in recovery this time and haven't, I guess I don't know what, right now I'm just kind of on this mission to find out, I guess, what's the turning point? Where's the switch? When do you step over the line of, I really, really, really give up, to where you got one more game and one more idea, one more scheme, and this that one more, just like we used when we was using one more, you know. But today it's I know when I noticed that it was different. I went to see there was a friend of ours that was in a fellowship, and she had relapsed, and I went to see her on the way to a meeting. I went to go by her house and see if she wanted to come to the meeting. And I went there and I seen that the kids' toys was laying all out in the yard, and she was nowhere to be found, and I had a sadness, and so I went to the meeting and I shared, you know, because I got my own kids, and I just felt sad. You know, she's out using. I could see the evidence of what she used to have before she used, and you know, I shared about that at the meeting, and somebody, a member with some clean time, came up to me after the meeting and said, "You shouldn't have gone over there by yourself." And the first thing in my mind was, now, why do they think they can come up and get in my business? What is? Again, it's all about Brad. They're after something. They're trying to prove to me that they have more authority than me, that they are in control, and I don't know, but that's how I looked at things. And then right at that lasted 10, 15 seconds, and I was cooking up some sort of response to him to put him in his proper place, let him know that I'm not to be trifled with like that's how sick I was. That was real brief. I mean, that happened like 10, 15 seconds. Right after that, I said, you know, man, Mark, you're right. Because right in my mind, I said, you know, wait a minute, this guy's been clean, however, 8 some odd years. He took time out of his busy day, like I'm so important, you know, that he's got to run over and do something, took time out of his busy day to come and give me a suggestion that might, and he said this, it might save your life. And I took it to heart, and I said, he's right. And I thought about the reality of, what if she had been there and had some dope? Then my kids' toys would be laying out in the front yard, okay? And I don't know what switched where I actually saw, and I never did it again, never will. But that was the difference. That's when I started listening, following directions, and having a little willingness. And, thank God I believe I still have that today, the humility that allows me to listen to another addict. On my way here, I was worried about some other situations. I got a sponsee. He's been clean 12 days. He asked me how I was doing. I said, well, I'm a little nervous about this retreat because of this and because of that and this other thing. And he just said, well, just put it in God's hands. 13 days clean. He's no different than that guy with all them years came up and gave me a suggestion. The same willingness to let me listen to the man with all the clean time made me tell my sponsee, thank you. I needed to hear that. So, I'm glad to be here today. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad.
Hello, my name's Tammy. I'm an addict.
Hello, Cammy.
This is like, I have 90 some days clean. I love hearing the speakers. I loved how Mary talked, and don't get me wrong, I've always had a thing for John because of how the first time I ever heard him speak, he cried. I'm sitting there looking at myself thinking, this man is letting girls see him cry. What the hell is going on? He does, a man doesn't show their emotion. What the hell is going on? The first meeting I ever went to, I seen him talk and he just started crying. I'm like, oh my God. I looked at some other woman and I said, he's crying and he's not even caring who sees. And then somebody told me he's very emotional when he speaks, and every time he speaks at a meeting, I sit there and I freaking cry. You're a wonderful speaker. You give me so much inspiration, just, how you say it. It makes me it brings so much into me. I guess I have a lot to share, but not a lot of time, I guess. But there is one thing that I want to share, is that this is my first convention ever. And this is so cool. I just thought, I live in Goshen. And I thought, there's only addicts in Goshen. There's none around anywhere else, blah, 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 blah. God, was I weird? And then when I heard about the convention here, because my sponsor told me about it, and she said, you are going. No matter what, you are going. And I put it off, and I put it off, and the day that I told her that I was going to go, I had no clothes. I wasn't prepared. I washed my clothes at the last minute and said, I think I'm going to go. My mom says, you're going, even if I have to drag you. But I am glad that I did come, because this is wonderful. To me, this is, oh, gee. To me, I've never seen so many addicts get together and have the same personalities. We're all the same. We came from the same thing. We've been through everything. And here I'm thinking nobody's going to understand me because I'm different. Well, I just want to give my gratitude. This is very awesome. This has opened my eyes. I go to meetings every week. Every week. And to see so many addicts in one room, just, open arms, they love each other, it's awesome, and I really appreciate it. This has opened my eyes so much. I just want to say thank you for all being here. This is so great. And being out here and fellowshipping with everybody, knowing that, we're all the same. This is awesome. I just appreciate you all being here. This is my first convention ever, and I know I'm coming back. I know it. Thank you very much.
I'm Jay. I'm an addict named Jay. And I don't even get nervous, but I got nervous, y'all. I just want to say, this is my first time being a Cat Mac. Thank you. It's not my first convention. My first convention was WCNA in Atlanta, and it was overwhelming. But they're talking about my recovery is my responsibility, and I sat there and I know today that I'm responsible for what I'm doing in my recovery. See, I have sponsees. I'm responsible to them. I'm not responsible for them. I know that everything that I do in my life today, I'm held accountable for, because see, responsibility means taking ownership. So when I sat there and I listened to my recovery is my responsibility, I thought about, I'm recovering from credit, okay? And that's a responsibility to me right now. Because, I thought about it in my active addiction. I can remember when I got those direct loan envelopes, I used to throw them in the drawer. I'm being honest now. I used to take them things and I would stuff them in the drawer. I could actually wallpaper my house. Or this bill would come and I would sit it here or throw it there. Because, see, I was not responsible at that time. Well, since I've been in recovery, it's amazing how creditors can find you. I mean, you get a job and it's like, man, everybody knows where you are today. So, I heard Kathy talking about working 2 and 3 jobs. I didn't mean to break your anonymity, sister. I'm sorry. To pay, pay off that student loan. Well, I got a $70-something thousand student loan bill, and it's okay today. Because, see, I'm recovering. So I have to be responsible. I can only do this process one day at a time. I can only recover from my credit one payment at a time. So, I'm doing the responsible thing. I'm paying that one. And then another one jumped up from when I was at a particular university, and they said, okay, you owe us this money. And I was like, damn, I thought they forgot about it. Well, you know what? I took care of that one. And, they always tell me to be careful what you ask for. I said, God, which one is next? And I want you to know that since I've been in this process, as soon as I finish paying off one bill, here comes somebody else to get the next one. And it's okay today. Because, they told me that joyous, happy, and free, that's what I'm looking for. See, joy, I know, happiness is surface. Joy is deep-rooted. But see, I want to be free, not only from active addiction, I want to be free from them creditors calling my home. See, I got tired of looking over my back. I get tired of every time. I got tired of all them bills coming, and I had to stuff them. See, it's like I suppress my emotions and my feelings. I suppress my bills and my credit card bills. I did that. See, so it's time to take that, to open it up, not only to free myself, because see, I'm working on the inside of Jay. But you know something? Those credit cards, those debtors, that's part of me too. So I'm trying to free myself, and this is where I am today. I'm there too, John, with the things, and I heard this young lady, Lisa, say, talking about her mother. Man, she took me right back there for a minute, because, see, I used to always say this about my mother, but one day I looked up and I had become my mother. And it was like, damn, everything I didn't want to be, I became. Okay? But it's okay today, because see, I got an opportunity to change this thing. Every day. And they told me that if I did the same things I always did, I was always going to get what I always got. So you know what I decided? I was tired of that. I'm willing to change. I've made some changes. I know I'm still growing, and I know I got a long way to go. But it's okay, because I can only do this one day at a time, one step at a time. But you know, the thing is, I'm willing to show up to do what I need to do. And it's not just showing up for me, because there might be somebody that might need me, or I might say something, better yet, you might say something that I need to hear. It's not always about being understood. Sometimes I need to understand. And that's where I'm at in my life today. You know, I just needed to share that because I heard John talking about not having enough money. I don't mean to break out in them, but sometimes I don't either. But it's okay, because you know what? If all those bills are paid, it's a good feeling inside of me today to know that I look on my wall, I got a bill rack, and I stack them every time they come. And I pull them down. As a matter of fact, I had a panic attack last night because I got 2 bills in my purse with the money orders, with the stamps, and I forgot to mail them. See, it was a time I ought to open up that envelope, put that money order thing back on, and I would forget them folks are getting this money today. But see, today I can't do that because, see, I want that freedom. See, I want the things that other people have in their lives. You know, I heard somebody say, come in here. I had the opportunity for someone to take me down that trail. Man, that rugged trail this morning. And I went to a tree that stood like this. And as I looked at the tree from back, it looked like this, but when I got up there, it was like this. That tree was embracing. See, that's what you all did when I got here. You embraced me. And I know that that's what that tree out there represents. That this is embracing me, that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be to get just what I need today. See, what they talked about when they came in here, the spirituality, because see, it's the similarities of everybody that's here. It's that one commonness. See, it says our common welfare comes first. So we all common, we all got that similarity. See, so we're going to shut everything else out. And this is spirituality here, because we're on one accord today, y'all. Everybody's here for the same thing. And that's to recover. You know, I'm so grateful today. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else but right here in recovery today. See, you know, that responsibility. You know, I got a job today, and I actually go to it. I'm serious. I show up, and I do my job. Like I said, I pay them bills. You know, I take care of Jay. I went to the dentist, and I hate a dentist, but I went and got my teeth cleaned, y'all. After 30-something years, and I don't care, you know, but at least I brush my teeth and I floss now. That's being responsible. You know, I actually fasten my seatbelt and I pay my car insurance. I'm talking about being responsible. You know, doing things to take care of Jay. You know, because if I don't take care of me, how am I? I'm of no good to anybody else. And I know that. You know, I heard somebody talking about, I'm going to say this, talking about that sponsor and that sponsor. Well, you know what? I guess I break tradition because I call my sponsees some days. I call them to see how they doing. Like they call me to see how I'm doing. And there's some days that, you know what? My sponsees sponsor me. I want you to know that, y'all. Some days, you know what? And I love it too, because some days my sponsees make this sponsor recover. And some days it's like, you going through this, I don't want to be bothered. But you know what? Then it's like, doggone it, you got to recover. Because you know what? When they're going through something and I get a little uncomfortable inside of the skin, they probably saying something that I need to work on. And I know that today. You know, so I'm grateful for the process of Narcotics Anonymous. I'm ever so much grateful for my predecessors who came before me, because see, they knew that one day I needed a place to go. So they did this. I always say they did it for me. See, I get a little selfish, y'all. I know that. But it's okay today. Because if you did do it for me, I'm grateful. Because guess what? I'm doing it for somebody that's coming up behind me. You know, I'm just grateful to be in Narcotics Anonymous. Like I said to the young lady, said this is her first convention. When I got in Atlanta, they had to hold this sister up because I cried to see 6,000 people saying the Serenity Prayer. It was awesome. I have never experienced anything like that. You know, but if they always said if it's 2 or 3 addicts, you can have a meeting there too. And I've been in some of those situations that was even more spiritual. You know, I know that this is a spiritual thing for me today. Because when I touched that tree, I stood there in awe. I couldn't even I couldn't move. And I know this is exactly where I'm supposed to be right now at this particular moment in my life with each of you. I thank each of you for showing up, because I need you to be here for me. I need to know that I'm still an addict. Because sometimes when I go out there, quote, in that real world, it's so hard for me to forget. So easy for me to get that I'm an addict. So I need to come back home, y'all, to get rooted and to get grounded. To remember, Jay, you still recovering. One day at a time, one step at a time, with the help of a sponsor, with a basic text, with the 12 concepts and the 12 traditions, but most of all, with the love that each of you have given me. I thank you.
My name is Ben. I'm an addict.
Hey, Ben.
It's my first time ever saying anything after a speaker thingy or whatnot, what have you. So I'm kind of nervous, but what that we do recover, or recovery is our whatever. Recovery is our responsibility. You know, for like the longest time, like I was always coming in here like for the wrong reasons at all times. Like I'd always come in here to get something from someone, or you know, to see the girls, you know, because, you know, out there, you know, everything was, like, all messed up, and I couldn't get none out there, so maybe I walk in here and maybe show that I do have something, you know, maybe I can get something, you know, but today it's not like that at all, you know. Today I'm very spiritual, I'm actually emotional, and when I think about the title of this program, or of this place, where we grow with love, it's, like, so true, because when I leave here, I feel so loved, and I just feel so much better, and it's just like just another learning experience, you know. And what you were sharing, man, like talking about, you know, all the pain that we have to go through in order to grow and be like, okay, this is it, I can't do it no more, you know, it messes me up, man, like, because like I'll be sitting there like thinking, man, when is it going to get better, when is it going to get better, when is it going to get better, and it's like I'll be sitting there, I'm so spiritually drained and so tired and so lonely and nothing else, and like people trying to talk to me, and it's like not clicking. And so finally, when I get on my knees and I ask my higher power, hey, help me out, you know, and I get honest, and then it's like, you know, the next couple of days it's just like a big boost, and I'm just like, hey, you know, I'm finally growing, and it's just a beautiful thing. I'm just digging this recovery, man. You know, I've got 107 days clean, and it's just. And it's so weird because like my like the couple, I mean, I've been around for like 2 years, but like I never was working the steps. I never tried the first step. I never was trying to do the second step. I never called my sponsor, and was never going, you know, I'm thinking reading the PIs, reading my literature, working the steps. Finally finished my step 1. You know, I'm calling my sponsor, you know, so I'm you know, and I got a job now, and it's like, I paid my own way here, so it's like, man, I'm doing something right, you know, I am doing something right, you know, and for one time in my life, I actually feel accepted, like I'm doing something for me, and it feels good, because, I don't know, it's like, I can see it whenever people see it in me, you know, like when we're talking about it, it's always good to be able to hear from, encouragement from other people. You know, for like where I'm from, like I was getting bad talked, and like, you know, because I'm a very rambunctious kind of guy. My character is kind of like jumpy, you know, and sometimes like my character defects show very, very bluntly, you know, until like another addict came up to me and it's like, Ben, you know, I noticed that you are trying, you are getting, you are getting better, you are recovering, because you are working the steps, and you're doing this and you're doing that, and it felt good, you know, and that's all I was wanting to hear, you know, that's all I was wanting to hear, from someone just to acknowledge me and say, hey, you know, you are recovering, you know, and I know I shouldn't have to do that, because I'm not here for me, I'm not here for anybody else except for me, you know, I don't need to care about what you guys think, because it's not you guys not working my program, I'm working my program, and if you guys don't like it, then I guess that's okay, because you're not in my shoes, or something like that, you know. But I don't know, I'm glad I'm here, I'm going to definitely keep coming back, and I will be here next year.
All right.
I'm an addict named Brian. I'm going to touch on another responsibility that I encountered, because when I got clean almost a year ago, and I'm just like 3 days or 4 days, I don't know what the date is today, but I'm real close to a year, and I'm really proud of that. I got clean because my kids started using, you know, and I went through this program about 96, 97, and I stayed clean for 14 months. And I don't think that I progressed as far then as I have today in a year. That's just my personal opinion, because I work really hard at this, and then yet my behaviors at times have landed me. It's like, you know, I'm clean, but officer, you know, where are we going now? Oh, I know the way to Oak Lawn. Yeah, you know, follow me. So anyway, and that's something that I had to learn. But you know, when I found out that my son was using, I couldn't tell him to do something or to not do something that I was doing. So I put the brakes on it right then. But for this addict, I've got this mind that, I mean, it's like all of a sudden, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, chemical imbalance, okay? Because I've jammed all these chemicals in my body for so long that then my thinking is just totally screwed. And it took a long time, and a lot of you who've been in meetings with me have seen me pack around resentment and anger. And I had, this wasn't even in a meeting, but you know, I was just going off on something, and this one young fella said, my mind just jumped into his mouth, you know, and I thought, well, you know, that's it. You know, if I show a lot of passion, if I show a lot of anger, if I show a lot of resentment, I can reach some people, you know, because it's just rah, and I just feel like puking, you know, and I feel like puking up all this stuff that I've been carrying around for a long time, a very, very long time. But you know what? I tried to get my son involved in NA. I knew it wasn't taken. I don't think he's as good a con man as I am, because Dad's had a lot more experience at it. And you know, when he started handing me literature on the use of drugs, and particular drugs, it's just like, you're my boy, you know. But you got to get off the internet, son, and quit looking this stuff up, because I know what the fascination is here. And I know where it took me. And today, 6 felonies later, I don't have him with me anymore, you know. And he's out in Iowa, and he's doing kiddie prison or whatever, however you want. But you know what? There's 2 ways I got to look at that. He's getting what he needs, and he's getting what he deserves, okay? Because there is a society here that I'm trying to join to the best of my ability today. And, you know, somewhat, I couldn't be responsible for his behaviors, and then yet sometimes the law says that you have to be, you know, and so there is restitution that needs to be paid and blah, blah, blah. And I got my own restitution to be paid, you know, so it's like, man, what a heavy load to be carrying around. But this program teaches me how to deal with that, and I don't deal with it, you know, very well. Sometimes what I really need to do is carry around some super glue and glue up my tongue to the roof of my mouth, because I'm the type of addict that when the stimulus comes my way, I'm going to react to it right now, you know. And that's what I'm trying to learn today. I'm trying to go inward and say, hey man, you don't have to comment to that, you know. You can let that one go, let that go. And it's tough for me, you know, it really is, because you know, sometimes in life, you know, it's like, I think God needs a hand here, and and you know, I can't say fuck you fast enough, you know. And you know where that gets me? You know, that gets me in a world of shit. It really does. Because I had an addict tell me one time, he was talking about another addict, and he said, I was telling this addict that, you know, you won't say that to the judge, you won't say that to the, but I will. See, I'm the type of addict that'll stand right up there and go, hey, you know what, you're screwing me, and about that time, you know, that's more time that I gotta do. You know, and that's me not using but acting like I'm using. So I try and do the best I can for today. And I'll tell you what, I've met so many cool people. Bob told me that this was just an outstanding opportunity, and you know, he never misses it. Joe sitting down here in front, same thing. You know, they're so enthusiastic. I'm also the type of addict that, you know, I have thoughts of using at times, and it's always when there's a lot of pain. You know, and it's like, but I gotta play that tape all the way through, you know, and I'm tired of the revolving door that I'm caught up in. So at one point in time, you know, and I know Kathy a little bit, and I was sitting there and I knew my son was going to go down, and she asked to make a suggestion, and a guy said, and you know, one thing, stay strong. And she said, but what else can he do? and thus don't use. But I have to do that for me. And Jay, you know, every time she comes into these meetings and she says that, you know, I love each and every one of you, and if nobody's told you yet, you know. And I was sitting there the first time I heard that, and I thought, ain't no way, you know. But the little bit that I do know of her, it is. That's how she really feels. So for each and every one of you that came up here and shared from the heart, and you all have, you know, I appreciate that. Just like the lady says, when it comes there, it goes there. That's all I got.
Thanks, Brian.
Anybody else want to share? Close the meeting, group hug.